I walked into the office at 6 in the morning and found the financial cabinet locked. The ledger that always sat on the shelf was gone. When I asked Brad about it, he didn't even look up from his phone. Numbers aren't your thing, Marcus. Stick to what you're good at, lifting heavy stuff. My stomach twisted. We built this company together 5 years ago. We split lumber deliveries and cold-called contractors from my garage in Austin. Now he was treating me like hired help. I just want to check last month's expenses, I said. He finally looked at me with that smile I used to trust. Don't worry about it. I've got the finances covered. You focus on the warehouse and client relationships. That's where you shine, buddy. Something in his tone made my jaw tighten, but I nodded and walked away. Later that morning, I tried accessing our accounting software. My password didn't work. I reset it 3 times. Nothing. I stood in the warehouse staring at stacks of lumber, feeling like a stranger in my own company. The trust we'd built over 5 years cracked right there. I didn't know it yet, but that crack would become a canyon. 2 weeks later, Brad invited me to lunch with Henderson Construction, our biggest client. We sat at an expensive steakhouse downtown. Brad ordered the most expensive cuts on the menu and spent the whole meal talking. Marcus here is the brawn of the operation, he told Mr. Henderson with a laugh. I handle the brain stuff, strategy, accounting, all that boring number work. Everyone at the table laughed. I forced a smile, but my face felt hot. When the bill came, I pulled out my company card to pay. The waiter came back looking uncomfortable. Sir, this card was declined. The table went silent. Brad smoothly pulled out his card and handed it over. Cash flow hiccup. I'll explain later, Marcus. He never did explain. That night, I checked my email and found nothing about any cash flow problems. Our bank account should have had plenty of money. I lay awake wondering what was happening. The next morning, Brad acted like nothing had happened. He clapped me on the shoulder and said we should grab drinks after work. I said yes, but inside, something had shifted. I started paying attention to things I'd ignored before. Suppliers started calling me directly the following week. The first call came from Timber Express. Marcus, we haven't received payment for the August shipment. That's $47,000. I pulled up my records. I had personally signed off on that payment 6 weeks ago. I called our bank. The payment never went through. Let me look into this, I told them. When I brought it to Brad, he sighed like I was bothering him. I restructured some vendor terms. Don't worry about it, it's handled. But they said, Marcus, seriously, I've got this, trust me. 3 more vendors called that week. Each time Brad had the same answer. It was handled. Don't worry, trust him. I stopped asking him and started printing copies of every receipt and invoice I could find. I hid them in my truck in a plastic folder. I didn't know what I was looking for yet, but my gut told me something was very wrong. At night, I'd sit in my truck going through papers, trying to make sense of the numbers, but accounting had never been my strength. Brad knew that. He'd always handled the money side of things while I managed operations and relationships. Now I wondered if that had been a mistake. One Monday morning, I tried logging into QuickBooks to check our vendor payments. Invalid password. I reset it using my email. Same error message. I walked straight to Brad's office. He was on his phone, feet up on the desk. Did you change the accounting software password? He covered the phone. Security protocol. Too many people had access. I'll send you view-only access if you need to check something. View-only? It's my company too, Brad. He uncovered the phone and waved me off. Can we talk about this later? I'm busy. I stood there for a moment, watching him laugh into the phone like I wasn't even there. View-only access to my own company's finances. The words burned in my chest. I went back to my office and tried to focus on work, but I couldn't. That afternoon, I called our bank directly and asked about our business account. They told me I'd been removed as a primary account holder. Only Brad had full access now. When did this happen? I asked. 3 months ago, sir. According to our records, you authorized it. I never authorized anything. My hands shook as I hung up the phone. This wasn't about security protocols. Brad was pushing me out. Friday came and my paycheck didn't hit my account. I checked 3 times. Nothing. $4,800 that should have been there was just gone. I drove to the office and found Brad in the warehouse loading boxes into his brand new Tesla. A $90,000 car I didn't know he'd bought. My paycheck bounced. He didn't even stop loading boxes. Cash flow, man, we're tight this quarter. It'll clear next week. How are we tight? We just landed 2 new contracts. He finally looked at me. Maybe if you focused more on bringing in sales instead of micromanaging every little thing, we wouldn't be in this mess. My hands balled into fists. I wanted to punch that smirk off his face. Instead, I turned and walked away before I did something I'd regret. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every dismissive comment, every time he'd made me feel stupid for asking about money. Around 3 in the morning, I made a decision. I couldn't confront him, not yet. He controlled everything. But I could learn, I could figure out what he was doing, and then I could stop him. I started teaching myself accounting that weekend. I sat at my kitchen table watching YouTube videos at 2 in the morning, counting basics for small business owners, how to read a balance sheet, understanding cash flow statements. The terminology confused me at first. Debits, credits, accruals, depreciation. But I kept watching, taking notes in a spiral notebook I hid in my kitchen cabinet. I went to a used bookstore and bought 3 accounting textbooks. They smelled like old paper and coffee stains. Every night after work, I'd study for 2 or 3 hours. My wife asked what I was doing. Just learning some new stuff for work, I told her. I didn't explain more. I couldn't risk Brad finding out. I learned about forensic accounting and how to spot fraud. Red flags like duplicate payments, ghost employees, and shell companies. Each new concept felt like a weapon I was sharpening. Brad had called me too dumb for numbers my whole life. He'd made sure I stayed away from the financial side of the business. Now I understood why. Knowledge was power, and he wanted all of it. But I was done being ignorant. Every term he'd used to confuse me, I now understood. Every trick accountants used to hide money, I could now recognize. I started going through the old invoices and bank statements I'd been collecting. I spread them across my kitchen table one Saturday while Brad thought I was at a job site. The numbers didn't match up. We were paying $12,000 every month to something called Vertex Consulting LLC for operational advisory services. I'd never heard of Vertex Consulting. I Googled the business address listed on the invoices. It was an apartment building in downtown Austin. I pulled up the property records online. The apartment was registered to Monica Pierce, Brad's girlfriend, the same Monica he'd hired 6 months ago as our marketing consultant. My hands started shaking. I took screenshots of everything, the invoices, the address, the property records. I saved them all to a flash drive and hid it in my toolbox in the garage. $12,000 a month for a year. That was $144,000 going straight to his girlfriend for services that didn't exist. I sat there staring at the papers for an hour, my mind racing. If he was stealing this much just through one fake company, how much more was he taking? How long had this been going on? I needed help, professional help, someone who could tell me what to do next. I tracked down Olivia Torres, our former bookkeeper who'd quit suddenly last year. It took me 3 days to find her phone number. When I called, she was hesitant. Marcus, I don't think I should talk to you. Please, I just need to understand what's happening. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop in Round Rock, far from our office. She looked nervous when she sat down, checking over her shoulder. Olivia, what happened? Why did you really quit? Her hands shook around her coffee cup. I signed an NDA. Brad made me sign it before I left. I won't tell him we talked, I promise. She took a deep breath. He's been stealing from you since year 2, Marcus. He made me create false vendor accounts and fake invoices. When I told him I was uncomfortable with it, he threatened me, said he'd make sure I never worked in Austin again. She pulled a folder from her bag and slid it across the table. I kept copies. I'm so sorry I didn't speak up sooner. I was scared. Inside were dozens of invoices for companies that didn't exist. Wire transfers with my forged digital signature. Bank statements showing money disappearing into offshore accounts. How much? My voice came out as a whisper. At least $2 million, probably more. The coffee shop seemed to spin around me. The next morning I went back to work smiling. I stopped at Brad's favorite taco place and brought him breakfast. He looked surprised. What's this for? Just wanted to say sorry for being stressed lately. You're right, I need to focus on what I'm good at. His whole face relaxed. He clapped me on the shoulder. See, this is the Marcus I need. Positive energy, bro. I laughed at his jokes during our team meeting. I asked about his weekend. I acted like everything was normal, like I hadn't just learned he'd stolen $2 million from me. Every word tasted like poison in my mouth, but I kept smiling. He thought he'd broken me. He thought I'd given up asking questions and accepted my place as the dumb muscle of the operation. That was exactly what I needed him to think. After work, he invited me for drinks. We sat at a bar downtown, and he talked about expanding the company, opening new locations, bringing on more investors. "We're going to be huge, Marcus. You just have to trust me." I raised my beer and clinked his glass. "I trust you, man." The lie came out smooth as silk. Inside, I was planning his destruction. Every friendly gesture was a move on a chessboard he didn't even know we were playing. Thursday nights, Brad played poker with his college friends. He'd be gone for at least 4 hours. That gave me a window. I waited until his Tesla pulled out of the parking lot, then I walked into his office. My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my throat. I pulled a flash drive from my pocket and plugged it into his computer. The desktop was password protected, but I'd watched him type it in dozens of times. M0 Nick at 2019, his girlfriend's name and the year they started dating. The screen unlocked. I opened his file folders and found what I was looking for: private accounting files, email archives, and spreadsheets labeled private, BS only. I dragged everything to the flash drive. The progress bar crawled across the screen. 2%, 5%, 10%. Every sound made me jump: the building settling, a car door outside, my own breathing. 50%, 75%. I watched the door, ready to rip the flash drive out and run if I heard footsteps. 90%, 95%. 100%, transfer complete. I ejected the drive, put everything back exactly as I'd found it, and logged out. My shirt was soaked with sweat. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. But I'd done it. I had everything now. That weekend, I locked myself in my garage and opened the files. What I found made me sick. Fake vendor invoices, $847,000 paid to shell companies that led directly back to Brad's personal accounts. Forged wire transfers, $623,000 moved out using my digital signature, a signature I'd never authorized on any of these transactions. Peril fraud: he'd been paying himself $35,000 a month while giving me $4,800. Same work, same company, completely different paychecks. Hidden offshore account, $1.2 million sitting in an account under his brother's name in the Cayman Islands. Total theft, $2,137,000. I sat in my garage at 3 a.m, staring at the numbers on my laptop screen. This wasn't just stealing. This was systematic destruction. He'd been robbing me for 3 years while making me feel stupid for even asking questions. Every time I'd asked about money, he'd made me feel like I was the problem, like I was too dumb to understand business, like I should just shut up and lift things. The betrayal burned in my chest like acid, but underneath the anger was something else: clarity. I finally understood the game he'd been playing, and now I was going to beat him at it. I met with Tyler Harrison on Monday morning. He was a business litigation attorney Olivia had recommended. I spread the evidence across his conference table: the flash drive, Olivia's folder, my notes, everything. Tyler went through it all carefully, making notes on a legal pad. After 30 minutes, he looked up. "This is textbook fraud. Wire fraud, forgery, embezzlement, money laundering. We're talking federal crimes here." "What do I do?" "Here's what you don't do. You don't confront him yet. He'll destroy evidence and run. We need him to feel safe. Keep digging his own grave." "So what's the plan?" Tyler leaned back in his chair, thinking. "You need to set a trap, something that forces him to expose himself. Tell him you've landed a major client who requires a financial audit before signing. He'll panic." "An audit?" "He can't say no without raising suspicion. And when he has to open the books to an outside auditor, he'll make mistakes. That's when we move." I liked how Tyler thought. It was strategic, calculated, the same way Brad had been playing me for 3 years. "How long will this take?" "A few weeks if we're lucky. But Marcus, you need to keep acting normal. Can you do that?" I thought about 3 years of humiliation, $2 million stolen, every condescending comment. "Yes, I can do that." I walked into Brad's office Monday morning with a huge smile on my face. He was drinking his morning coffee, scrolling through his phone. "Brad, great news. Henderson Construction wants to triple their contract with us." He looked up interested now. "Triple, that's huge." I know, right, but they have one requirement. They need a full financial audit first. Corporate policy thing. They've been burned before by companies with messy books. I watched his face carefully. His smile froze for just a second, a tiny crack in his confidence. An audit, that's great. Yeah, totally great. Their auditor wants access by end of next week. I told them you'd coordinate everything. That cool. I could see his jaw muscles tighten. His knuckles went white around his coffee cup, but he kept smiling. Absolutely, no problem at all. I'll get everything ready. Awesome, this could change everything for us, man. Yeah, change everything. His voice sounded hollow. I left his office and walked to the warehouse. Once I was alone, I let myself smile. The trap was set. Now I just had to wait for him to walk into it. The next few days I watched him stress. He stayed late at the office. He snapped at employees. He looked tired and pale. The pressure was building. Perfect. The auditor arrived the following Monday. His name was Vincent Kane, but he wasn't really an auditor. He was a forensic accountant Tyler had hired. He showed up in a sharp suit carrying a briefcase with fake Henderson Construction business cards. Brad met him in the conference room, all smiles and handshakes. I sat in on the meeting, playing my role as the friendly, clueless partner. So Vincent, what exactly do you need from us? Brad asked. Vincent opened his laptop. Full access to your accounting software, bank records, vendor files, payroll records, and tax returns for the past 3 years. The color drained from Brad's face. 3 years, that seems excessive. Standard procedure for a contract this size. Henderson has strict due diligence requirements. Brad's hands fidgeted with his pen. Of course, I'll get you everything by tomorrow. Actually, I'll need access today. My team is on a tight timeline. Brad looked like he might throw up. Today, some of the files need to be organized first. Vincent smiled pleasantly. That's fine. I can work with raw data. Just point me to your accounting system. I watched Brad squirm. He had no way out. Saying no would raise red flags with our biggest client, but giving access would expose everything. He was trapped. That night, my phone rang at 11. Brad's name flashed on the screen. Marcus, hey, listen, I've been thinking about this audit. What about it? His voice sounded strained. I don't think we're ready. Maybe we should tell Henderson we need another month to prepare our books. Why, is something wrong with the books? Silence on the other end. I could almost hear his brain working, trying to figure out what to say. No, nothing's wrong, I just think, we want to look our best for them, make sure everything is perfect. Brad, they want to move fast. If we delay, they might go with another supplier. This is $1 million contract. Maury, silence. You're right, yes, you're right, we'll be fine. Is there something you're not telling me? I asked, putting concern in my voice. No, everything's fine, I'm just stressed. Forget I called. He hung up. I sat in my dark bedroom, smiling. He was panicking. The walls were closing in and he knew it. Over the next 2 days, Vincent requested more and more documentation. Each email made Brad more desperate. I watched him unravel, making excuses, stalling, trying to buy time he didn't have. The trap was working perfectly. On day 3 of the audit, Vincent sent Brad an email requesting vendor documentation for Vertex Consulting and 5 other suspicious companies. Brad sat at his desk, his face pale, scrolling through files on his computer. I was in the warehouse when my phone buzzed. A text from Vincent. He just sent me the wrong file. We've got everything. 10 minutes later, Brad burst through the warehouse door. His face was white as paper, eyes wild. I need to talk to Vincent. Now, where is he? He left for lunch. What's wrong? I sent him the wrong spreadsheet. I need it back before he opens it. What was in it? His hands were shaking. Just wrong information, outdated stuff. It'll confuse him. I'm sure it's fine, Brad. What could possibly be in there that you're worried about? His eyes met mine. For just a second I saw fear. Real, raw fear, and something else, realization. He studied my face carefully. Did you set this up? Set what up? This audit, this whole thing. I kept my expression neutral. Henderson Construction requested the audit, you know that. He stared at me for another moment, then rushed back to his office. I followed slowly, my heart pounding with anticipation. It was almost over now. The next morning, Brad stormed into my office and slammed the door. His face was red with rage. "You set me up, you goddamn set me up." I didn't flinch. I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out my own flash drive. I placed it on the desk between us. "Sit down, Brad. You think you're smart, you think. Sit down." Something in my voice made him stop. He sat, breathing hard, staring at the flash drive. "Everything you've stolen is on here. Every fake invoice, every forged signature, every dollar of the $2.1 million you took from our company, from me." His face went through several emotions: shock, denial, anger, then calculation. "You don't understand. I was building something. I understand you called me too dumb to learn numbers. I understand you treated me like your employee while robbing me blind. I understand you thought I'd never figure it out. If you just stayed out of the finances." "It's my company too," my voice echoed off the walls. "I built this with you, and you repaid me by stealing everything." He stood up, his chair scraping back. "You can't prove anything." I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "I already have. I've sent copies of everything to my attorney. To Vincent, who's actually a forensic accountant, by the way, and to our investors. Your personal and business accounts were frozen an hour ago. The police are on their way." Brad's face went from red to white. "You're bluffing." "Am I? Check your bank account." He pulled out his phone. His hands shook as he tried to log in. Failed, tried again, failed. His banking app showed an error message: account restricted. "You can't do this. I'll fight you in court. You'll go to prison, because unlike you, I learned how evidence works. I learned accounting. I learned the law. I learned everything you thought I was too stupid to understand." He lunged for the flash drive, but I was faster. I grabbed it and stepped back. "You think you've won," he snarled. "I know I have." 2 hours later, 2 police officers walked into our office. Brad tried to run, but they caught him in the parking lot. They put him in handcuffs while our employees watched through the windows. He looked back at me as they put him in the patrol car. His face showed rage and disbelief. He still couldn't understand how the dumb muscle had outsmarted him. I felt nothing watching him leave, just cold satisfaction. The investigation moved fast. Federal wire fraud, forgery, embezzlement, money laundering. The forensic audit Vincent conducted confirmed everything. $2,137,000 stolen over 3 years. Our investors were angry, but at Brad, not me. They'd seen my documentation, my cooperation, my evidence. They understood I'd been a victim too. The company's assets were frozen temporarily while everything got sorted out. I met with investigators almost daily, walking them through every document, every transaction, every piece of evidence I'd collected. The district attorney called it one of the most thoroughly documented fraud cases she'd ever seen. "You did our job for us," she said. Olivia came forward officially, providing testimony about Brad's threats and the fake accounts he'd forced her to create. Monica, Brad's girlfriend, was also charged as an accomplice for accepting payments she knew were fraudulent. For the first time in 2 years, I could breathe without that weight on my chest. The truth was out. Justice was coming. Our employees were shocked. Some had known Brad for years, but when they learned what he'd done, how he'd stolen from all of us, they supported me completely. The company would survive. I'd make sure of it. It took 6 months to untangle Brad's web of fraud. 6 months of lawyers, investigators, and accountants going through every transaction. But slowly, we rebuilt. I hired a new accountant named Maria Valdez. She agreed to teach me everything she knew about running a company's finances properly. We met twice a week in the conference room. "You're a natural at this," she said one afternoon. "I'm motivated," I replied. I fired everyone Brad had personally hired, people who'd helped him or looked the other way. Then I brought Olivia back as our CFO. She deserved that position. She'd risked everything to help me. I implemented open book management. Every employee could see where company money was going. Complete transparency. No more secrets, no more hidden accounts, no more lies. Our vendors were patient once they learned what had happened. Most agreed to new payment plans. We honored every debt Brad had left unpaid. The company culture changed. People felt safer, more valued. Productivity went up. Morale improved. Clients who'd left during the scandal started coming back. Word spread through Austin's construction community. Marcus Reed runs an honest company. It was hard work rebuilding trust, but brick by brick we did it. The trial happened 8 months after Brad's arrest. He pled not guilty, which didn't surprise anyone. His lawyer tried to paint me as the real criminal, claiming I'd framed him out of jealousy. Marcus Reed was always resentful of Brad Shaw's intelligence, his lawyer told the jury. He's the brawn, Brad's the brain. Marcus couldn't handle being second best. Then the prosecutor presented our evidence. Olivia testified about the fake accounts and Brad's threats. Vincent explained the forensic audit findings. The FBI agent walked through the offshore accounts and money trails. They showed the jury emails where Brad called me, too stupid to ever check the numbers. Text messages to Monica joking about how easy it was to fool me. Bank records showing the systematic theft. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Brad's face went blank when they read the verdict. His lawyer put a hand on his shoulder, but Brad just stared straight ahead like he couldn't process what had happened. As they led him away in handcuffs, he looked at me one last time. His mouth moved, forming words I couldn't hear, but I could read his lips. This isn't over. But it was. 15 years in federal prison, $2.8 million in restitution and fines. His career, his reputation, his freedom, gone. The board met 2 weeks after the verdict. They offered me full operational control of the company, no more partnership, no more shared decisions. It was all mine now. I renamed it Reed Supply Group. Same building, same business, same employees, but different foundation, one built on honesty and transparency. Our first quarterly report under my leadership showed 23% profit growth. Clients felt confident working with us again. Our reputation for reliability grew. I framed the first balance sheet I'd created entirely myself and hung it in my office. Not because the numbers were perfect. They weren't, but because I understood every single number on that page. I understood what they meant, where they came from, and where they were going. That knowledge was power Brad could never take from me again. The office felt different now. Lighter, employees smiled more, we celebrated small wins, trust replaced suspicion. One afternoon, I walked through the warehouse watching our team load delivery trucks. These people depended on this company for their livelihoods. I'd almost lost everything because I'd been afraid to learn. Never again. The numbers that used to terrify me now felt like old friends, predictable, honest, empowering. Brad had hidden the books to control me. I'd learned them to never be controlled again. 8 months after sentencing, a letter arrived from the federal prison in California. Brad's name was on the return address. I almost threw it away, but curiosity won. I opened it at my desk. Marcus, I know you won't believe this, but I was trying to protect you from the stress of finances. If you just trusted me, we could have been billionaires together. You were always better at relationships than strategy. I thought I was helping both of us. I'm sorry you couldn't see that. We could have had everything. I read it twice. No remorse, no real apology, no accountability. Just justification and blame. He still thought he was the victim, still thought he'd been helping me by stealing millions, still couldn't see what he'd done wrong. The letter said more about him than any trial testimony ever could. He'd learned nothing, changed nothing. He'd spend the next 15 years in prison believing he was the smart one and I was the fool. Let him think that. I folded the letter and put it in my desk drawer. Some people don't deserve responses. Some people don't deserve the energy it takes to be angry at them. Brad Shaw was my past. Reed Supply Group was my future. I had work to do. 1 year after taking over the company, I received an invitation to speak at a small business conference in Dallas. The topic, financial literacy as self-defense. I stood in front of 200 entrepreneurs and business owners and told them my story, not for sympathy, but as a warning. I was the muscle, I told the crowd. My partner made sure I knew it. He controlled the numbers because he understood something I didn't. Whoever controls the numbers controls the company. I held up a balance sheet. This used to terrify me. All these columns and numbers and terms I didn't understand, so I avoided it. I let someone else handle it, and that almost destroyed everything I'd built. People in the audience nodded. They understood. Now this tells me exactly where I stand. Every dollar coming in, every dollar going out. Nothing is hidden, nothing is mysterious, and that knowledge protects me. I paused, looking across the room. If you own a business or dream of owning one, learn the language of money, take classes, read books, ask questions, because if you don't understand the numbers, someone else will use your ignorance against you. The room erupted in applause. Afterward, dozens of people came up to me with questions, stories, concerns. I stayed for 3 hours talking to everyone who wanted advice. Helping others protect themselves, that felt like the right ending to my story. 2 years after Brad's conviction, Reed Supply Group operates across 3 states, Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana. Annual revenue, $12 million. We employ 47 people, all paid fairly with full benefits. I mentor young entrepreneurs now, teaching them what I learned the hard way. Never surrender financial control. Never be afraid to ask questions. Never let anyone make you feel stupid for wanting to understand your own business. Late one night, I sat in my office reviewing quarterly projections. The numbers looked good. Growth was steady. Cash flow was healthy. We were expanding into Arkansas next quarter. The numbers that used to scare me now felt empowering. They told stories of hard work, honest business, and second chances. Brad had called me too dumb for numbers. He'd made me believe I couldn't learn, couldn't understand, couldn't compete with his intelligence. He was wrong. I didn't just learn accounting. I learned investigation, law, strategy, and patience. I learned that knowledge isn't about being smart, it's about being willing to learn. Brad hid the books to control me. I learned them to never be controlled again. And in the end, I didn't just take back my company. I took his entire empire and built something better, something honest, something that helps people instead of exploiting them. He's in prison, I'm free. That's justice.